Welcome to the Herd's official YouTube channel. Make sure to like and subscribe. Don't forget to check out the Colin Cowherd podcast, all of our NFL instant reactions, and more football content.
I did big carbs last night, J-Mac. A big pre-Blazing 5 carb night. Bolognese, pizza. Give me that jet fuel I need for my Blazing 5 picks. 58% on the year.
He's hot. Yeah, listen, you needed carbs last night after the beating I put down on you in that Austin Reeves discussion. That was fun yesterday. You love that. But 58% is kind of sort of hot. You going to Vegas this weekend or what?
I want to save some money for the kids. I don't want to I don't want to be a ball hog and take all the wins. But let's not waste any time. We're hot. We're hungry. Here's the Blazing 5.
It's a hot one. Let's blaze it up.
Fire it up.
It's Colin's Blazing 5. Buccaneers at Bills.
I like Buffalo at home -5.5. From 100 degrees in Miami, counting humidity, now they get a warm weather team up in Buffalo where the weather's 40 and windy. They are the number one rushing offense. That matters in bad weather. Outgained opponents in 3 straight games. In their last 5 wins, they've won by at least a touchdown. So when Buffalo wins, they tend to play downhill and win big. Tampa, Bucky Irving not playing. Mike Evans not playing. Chris Godwin probably not playing. Their offense is dried up in Tampa, outgained in 5 straight games. They're averaging 18 points are the Bucs in their last 3. They're too beat up. They're asking too much of Baker Mayfield. I like the Bills to win in ugly weather, 30-23 and cover.
Seahawks and Rams.
Wise guys may not agree with me. I'll take Seattle +3. 10 straight road wins, so that's not an issue. Tied for the fewest sacks allowed and the second most sacks. That's very Denver-like. It's easy to win games when your quarterback is the more comfortable. Averaging 6.5 yards a play, so they extend drives, keep Sam Darnold, JSN on the field, and not a small note, great special teams. Number 1 PFF. That matters because the Rams special teams have been wonky all season. Also, the Rams, 3 of their 4 wins have been against backups on this winning streak. They're a little overvalued. To me, this is a pick'em game. I like Seattle getting a field goal. Keep your eye on special teams edge for the Hawks. 28-27, Seattle wins outright.
49ers and Cardinals.
Brock Purdy's playing. I like the Niners -2.5. They're coming off their worst loss of the season. They will be in a bad mood. Brock Purdy, of all the teams he's ever played, has owned Arizona. The Cardinals have lost 6 of 7. James Conner, Marvin Harrison out, so they don't have most of their weapons. They've been outscored badly in the 4th quarter. They don't have much to begin with. I know J-Mac loved him in the preseason, but they got no juice, no energy, and they're missing stars. They do not get to the quarterback. Niners O-line's been better than I've given it credit for. Brock Purdy has time to throw. His team's getting healthier. Niners win, and they cover 28-23.
Ravens and Browns.
I like the Browns +8.5. Have not lost by more than 1 score at home against the division opponent since 2023. They always play tough at home against their division. Dylan Gabriel has been stabilized. No interceptions in 4 of his 5 starts, multiple touchdowns in the last couple. He's been stabilized by a great coach, and he's getting that rookie running back, Quinshon Judkins, is now on fire and in a groove. So they can do some ball control in cold weather. The Ravens, 3rd straight road game, play a lot of close games against divisional opponents. And the other thing is that defense on the road is not very good for Baltimore. It's not the same. It's much better at home. I think Baltimore wins 8.5. Way too many points. Ugly, low-scoring game. 3rd straight road game for the Ravens. A little fatigued. 24-20. Take the points.
Lions at Eagles.
I like Philadelphia. They're a step-up team. They're 4-1 this year against teams with winning records. They often play better in the bigger games. Packers, Bucks, Chiefs, Rams beat them all. Their offense never turns it over. 4 giveaways all season. They don't beat themselves, and they're great in the red zone. Nobody's better, not even the Chiefs. So if they can move the ball, and I think they will score in the red zone. The Lions' defense on the road, not the same. Jared Goff playing under 50 degrees, everything moves down. Regression takes place. Penei Sewell's banged up. Sam Laporta's banged up. Detroit, cold weather worries me. And I think Philadelphia knows what they are. I think they're going to win this game and cover 28-24, two of the best rosters in the NFL. So I like a clear dog in the Cleveland Browns, but I like favored Buffalo, favored 49ers, favored Eagles. Seahawks-Rams line doesn't make a lot of sense to me. That should be a pick 'em to 1 point. Now that Seattle gets a field goal, I really like them. Again, keep your eye on special teams because the Seahawks have been excellent, and the Rams, I think they're using now another kicker. So we talked about this yesterday, and now it came out in The Athletic today. Multiple executives saying, I don't like any of these quarterbacks in college. Now, the problem is, as far as I can count, there are 9 teams that probably need to draft a quarterback. There's 5 where it's not arguable. Draft a quarterback with your first pick. You mostly know, those 5 teams that should draft a quarterback. Cleveland, the Jets, the Raiders, the Saints, the Steelers, draft a quarterback, first pick. There's 4 others that need to strongly consider drafting a quarterback, maybe not their first pick, but somewhere close. Arizona, Miami, LA, and Minnesota. That's 9. Well, I'm reading this story this morning, executives in the NFL saying, I don't love any of the quarterbacks right now. The other one said, nobody's playing the position well enough to take over my franchise. Now, I do believe Fernando Mendoza, last weekend separated himself from all the other quarterbacks. I like Dante Moore, but he's 20. Most believe he's going to come back. I like Lenoris Sellers, the kid at South Carolina. Raw, again, he's 21 years old, not playing that great. He's been dinged up. Those are the other 2 guys I like, Dante Moore and Lenoris Sellers. I think Mendoza separated himself, 6'5", big arm. They say he's a great leader, really, really driven to be great. I think when he went to Oregon and lit up the Ducks, I think he's separated. The winner in this, though, the San Francisco 49ers. So when Brock Purdy gets hurt, that's bad news, right? But it did give them an opportunity to show the world that Mac Jones can play. Mac's been excellent this year without having Ricky Pearsall or Brandon Ayuk. He's been excellent. So think about this. The Niners are old, and they're expensive, and they're brittle. They need to get young. 9 teams need to draft a quarterback, and Mendoza is not only separating, Dante Moore and Sellers may not come out. So then you're looking at maybe Ty Simpson at Bama, don't love, arms okay, not hyper athletic. It's Bama. Their quarterbacks, live a different life collegiately than a real life in pro football. So I think the Niners have massive leverage. They could hold out for a second or a third round pick, and you think it's nutty. But go look at those 9 teams. You got coaches that don't want to lose their job. Mac Jones may not be the prospect Mendoza is, but I would take him for the next 2 years over the other guys. And I mean, like the Jets, the Browns, the Raiders, the Saints, the Steelers, they don't have a choice. They got to take a quarterback with their first or second pick. And I think the Rams, Vikings, Dolphins, and Arizona should as well. Here's Albert Breer on the upcoming quarterback class and decisions that will be made.
There are some teams that are already looking at the idea of what we do in the offseason, and could there be another Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, Daniel Jones, Geno Smith type of story out there to go and seize upon, especially, like you said, with the draft class, maybe not looking like what people had hoped it would be coming into the year. Nussmeier gets benched in the middle of the Alabama game. Drew Aller is hurt, right? Like Lenoris Sellers maybe going back to school. Fernando Mendoza looks like he's going to go high up, but he may be the only first rounder at this point. We have to let those things play out. But right now it does look like there's going to be more teams needing quarterbacks than are going to be available.
Yeah, and that's big, big leverage for San Francisco. And, I mean, you look at the current draft order. Tennessee doesn't need one. Somebody's going to move to that number 1 spot. Tennessee is going to be able to get a smorgasbord of picks because somebody's moving up to the number 1 spot. Saints at 2 need one. Jets at 3 need one. Giants 4 don't. Browns do. Raiders do. Dolphins have offensive line needs, pass rusher needs. I could see the Dolphins drafting a quarterback with their second or third pick, getting a Lenoris Sellers if he came out in the second round. I could get that. Commanders don't need one. Bengals don't, but they should probably draft one 4th, 5th, 6th round. Burrow's health a concern. Rams don't need one immediately. They have 2 first-round picks. My take on the Rams is they're going to get either a corner or an offensive tackle with their first pick. They'll take a Sellers, a raw kid that's not quite ready to play late in the first round. But I mean, there's some no doubt about it teams. I don't remember the last year where it looks like 7 of the 10 teams in the top 10 could all take a quarterback. And it looks like, I like Dante Moore a lot, but he is 20. And that was the Sam Darnold issue when he came out. Sam was 21. He was too young. 20 is really young to go into the pros.
So we both like Mendoza, right? We like what we've seen.
Yes.
But I don't know that he's a generational, got to trade up to get him kind of quarterback. We'll see during the process, but I don't know that that's the case, Colin. So who's offering the Titans a boatload of picks to go up for Fernando Mendoza? I don't think anyone is. Because guess what? Especially if you're the Jets, you could either take a quarterback here, take one later in the draft, and you could take one in 27 because you have 3 picks.
I think, who I think the team is Cleveland. Because if you look at Cleveland's defense, Andrew Berry is drafted very well. They've got good players. In fact, I was thinking this morning, if Mac Jones went to Cleveland, and they still have the Deshaun Watson pay, so they'd rather get a rookie quarterback. If Mac Jones went to Cleveland, I think Cleveland would be a 9. They'd be my double win total team next year. I think their roster. Go look at Cleveland's roster. Dude, their defense in the NFL at home is significantly better than any other defense in the league, period.
So you think Mac Jones could turn the Browns from, like, say, a 4-13 team to a 9-win team?
Absolutely.
Come on. 5 wins for Mac Jones?
Absolutely.
Oh, my gosh. Well, based on what we've seen this year, maybe. But remember, he also stunk it up in Jacksonville, was atrocious filling in at the end.
Again, Stefanski's a legitimate coach. Mac's not a superstar. Cleveland's roster is really good. It's the Colts. I said, I've been on the Colts the last 2 years. I'm like, the roster's great. They're terrible at quarterback. Well, the Colts are going to win their division going away. I said, what I said with New England, I'm like, Vrabel and Drake May, they just spent $300 million on players. They're going to win games. I'm telling you, I've hit it 4 years in a row. If Mac Jones went to Cleveland, or if they got Mendoza, because I think Mendoza's a day one starter, I would take Cleveland as my double win total team next year. Oof, go look at Cleveland. Go online. Look at the Browns depth chart.
No, but the problem is you got to face Lamar twice and Joe Burrow twice.
Yeah. Will they be available?
You're bullish on the Browns, huh? Do you like them this weekend against the Ravens? I
actually do. And with that, we're lucky. Years ago, Portnoy, when he was starting Barstool, they've emerged as a big college football network. But the reason they became that is they went out and hired Kayce Smith, who hosts their show with Portnoy, Big Cat, and Brandon Walker. And those guys that sounds like a mixer that you can get in trouble with. Big personalities. So you grew up in Dallas, and then you would go to Texas A&M. Like myself, we didn't have sports fans in the family. You became this star for Barstool, and we met a few weeks ago at the USC-Illinois game. I don't buy Texas A&M. Not that I don't buy them. They're obviously good. I like their coach. I know. I feel like they keep beating teams that have just fired their coach or they're going to. I love Bama this year, and it's a little confirmation bias because I'm such a Kalen DeBoer fan. Sell me in a minute on A&M. They're athletic at quarterback. They got a lot of big dudes. They have an NIL. Why do I need to buy them?
Well, first of all, you talk about bias. I mean, I'm wearing maroon and white kicks today, Colin. I knew what you were going to come with. No, and at the end of the day, the only teams they can play are the teams that are on their schedule. And I hear you about the coaches getting fired. A&M's also getting those coaches fired. At the way that A&M is playing in all 3 phases of the game, Marcel Reed in the pocket, just everything from an X's and O's standpoint is there. The bigger thing for me is that this team is playing for Mike Elko differently than I've ever seen them play for a coach in my entire life. He buys into the culture. Tommy Moffitt, the strength and conditioning coordinator, came from LSU. He's got this team playing tough, and they just don't look like the A&M 8-4s that we've made fun of forever.
My whole life.
Yes, I mean, and I have to defend that every year, and then every November I start getting scared. I'm like, oh, is this going to happen again?
Right.
This team is playing differently, and just when you look at the talent across the board, you look at the money, the NIL, and then you get a guy like Mike Elko and his staff in there, like this team is for real, and I understand where you're coming from, Alabama. They're not the same team that lost to Florida State, but they still lost to Florida State.
Right.
A&M plays Notre Dame, gets that non-conference win. So you have to believe in them. They're 9-0 in the middle of November. I like that.
I'm a huge Bama fan. I don't think Ty Simpson's quite as people project. I think he's a good kid. He sat for 3 years, was a backup, didn't do much. The world's changed. NIL, Texas has the most money. Texas A&M has the second most money in the conference. That's the reality, is that a lot of these SEC schools are in small towns where a car dealer's like the rich guy. Well, at Ohio State or Michigan, it's venture capital guys, or Notre Dame. It's a different ballgame. So Bama is not what they were with Saban. It's not Kalen DeBoer's fault. I think they're underserved because of that loss to Florida State, and everybody just labeled them because they got dogged. They got dragged.
Everyone said they were dead.
I think in the last month, your thoughts on Bama?
So I agree with you. The Ty Simpson, he has looked unbelievable.
He has.
When you look, they do look a little bit one-dimensional because Alabama.
They don't run it.
They don't run it. And you look at the successful Alabama teams, you had guys that could always run the ball. And you look at all of their rushing stats right now, it's all at the bottom of the SEC.
Yeah.
That's just not the way Alabama wins games. And I do think under Coach Saban, they had a little bit more of a toughness. I agree with you that it's not Coach DeBoer's fault, but there's something about these Alabama teams under Kalen DeBoer that just don't look like they are as tough and as physical.
Well, they went to Oklahoma and got pushed around.
That never happened with Nick Saban.
Right.
And that, to me, is a little bit alarming. Now, when you look at what Ty Simpson and this offense has done, especially in the passing attack, you have to believe in them, and you know they're going to have guys on defense. But when they're going up against teams with really good front sevens, and you know that they're going to throw the ball, what are they going to be able to do? Because they can't run the ball right now.
So you never ask anybody their age. You're obviously very young, and young people talk to young people. Young people don't talk to people like me. So I want to bring up, I'm
not that young, and I'm talking to you right now.
I mean, my producers ignore me at every request. So Lane Kiffin is kind of cool, and he's got an identity. And a smart coach told me recently, offensive high school players will follow coaches. Defensive guys want to go to the big schools. They're going to go to your Texases and your Ohio States and your Bamas. So I think Nick there's a Pied Piper feeling in college. I think he'd be great in the pros. What are the people that you know that are young and players and coaches? What do they tell you on Kiffin? You have a heartbeat of the SEC. Is he considering pro football?
I think you have to think he's considering all options at this point, but I think that he connects so well with these young players, and you see his connection with Jackson Dart. And he's cool, and he's the best at social media trolling, and these guys love that. And you know that anything that comes out of his mouth, whether it's in the media or it's on social media, is going to get clicks. Yeah. And I think that really fits in recruiting. And you look at all the jobs that are open, and he's going to coach 5 teams next year, it seems like. He's just going to be coaching everywhere. But right now, what he's building at Ole Miss, he's making Ole Miss a destination that, 10, 15 years ago, these kids wouldn't have necessarily wanted to go. And he seems like he connects to that level. So it would be dumb to sit and say he's not considering the NFL, especially the Giants with Jackson Dart there. But I think he's a college coach. I think he fits the culture, and he's young, and he's cool, and he's happy there. He's got young kids. If I was him, I would stay in college, but,
no,
that's my pay grade.
I think it's a really good point. I think fit in life matters, and I think he's just snarky enough that he would offend an owner or a GM. Yeah, he's just inappropriate enough on social media, like you guys are a lot, that it's...
I work for a company that's always inappropriate. That's what we do.
So tomorrow you're at Wrigley. It's Michigan, and it's Northwestern. I think Underwood's unbelievable. I think he's my God, he's just an unbelievable talent. I think Marsh is one of the receivers I like. What do you make, Dave loves his Michigan. Do you think deep down in his heart, he thinks this Harbaugh replacement's the guy? Because, when you hire the guy on the staff, it goes, I understand why you do it. Players like him. There's loyalty to the brand. Where are you with Michigan? What does Dave say privately about Michigan?
Well, Dave is as authentic as you can get. You know that. You've been around him. He believes truly that Michigan's going to beat Ohio State this year, and he's going to believe it even if he doesn't believe it. Right. He's going to say it. I think that one thing with this team, they're all so young. You talk about just the way that they had the turnover, and it wasn't just losing Coach Harbaugh. It was just a lot of guys leaving.
All of them.
So the fact that they're still even in the mix, they're still in the lower level conversation of being able to get in the playoff. They would have to beat Ohio State on Thanksgiving, obviously. But I think that this is a great spot for Michigan to be in. And I see where the NIL money, and that's where Dave really loves to get involved, right? Because, he's got the big money coming in. But, I mean, if you're a Michigan fan right now, you shouldn't be thinking poorly of this team. They're young kids, and Bryce looks great.
Yeah, no, he's a pretty phenomenal guy. So when you grow up in Texas, and now you live in New York, and you hang out in Chicago and all this stuff, how do you view, everybody said, the Pac-12 going to the Big Ten, they won't be able to handle the weather. My take was they'll bring all the quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I mean, even Tom Brady played at Michigan. He's from California. Andrew Luck, Aaron Rodgers. The quality of quarterback in the Big Ten now, Jaden Mayava, Dante Moore, even that Nico Iamaleava is like, he's got the skills. So I think the West Coast teams have brought kind of a smarter, more sophisticated quarterback-driven offense. But how does somebody like you that grows up in Texas and Big Ten country, how do you view SC? Do you see him as soft? How do you view that whole SC Lincoln Riley thing?
So I love Lincoln Riley. I liked him when he was at Oklahoma. So I thought it was a great hire. And they actually used to make fun of me at Barstool. They were like, do you have like a crush on him or something? Why are you always so high on him? I was like, he's an offensive mind, but he just needs to find somebody to help him with his defense, and he's going to get this team right. I've always thought with USC and UCLA and Oregon, it's like they're kind of like the sexy school, but they're not going to be able to handle it in the SEC or the Big Ten week in and week out. We're seeing that's not necessarily true. We saw what Oregon did last year. We saw what Dan Lanning has built. You're seeing, USC is very clearly in the hunt.
They're very good at home. USC is good at home.
And I just truly believe that, you see these different fits. I didn't like that the Pac-12 fell apart, because right before it fell apart, you had a million quarterbacks in that league.
It was probably the best Pac-12 season in the history of the Pac-12. The last year, they had 7 good teams.
And we're like having a funeral for it. It was unbelievable. And so to look at that, and I think the bigger thing was not even necessarily the weather, it's the travel. I mean, West Coast teams having to go all the way to the East Coast and back and forth, like it takes away the regionality of college football, which I grew up
And you
loving.
lose 2 or 3 hours.
Yes, of course. And like time, as you get older, and I mean, I know you said I'm young. I'm not that young. Time really does matter when it comes to that. And these guys are so used to rigid schedules. So, but I do like seeing the quarterback play, because the Big Ten used to be, it's like you're going to run the rock, you're going to have these great big offensive linemen, and it's going to be, a 9-6 game. Now you're seeing guys like Dante Moore, and you're seeing just these teams have these offenses that come from the Pac-12, and that's exciting. Now, if they played, week in and week out every single year, it'll start to even out for sure. Yeah,
so Barstool's interesting. So I don't really know. I've met Big Cat and Brandon, you and Portnoy. I've met him. It's a wild, a lot of juice, a lot of energy, and you feel like part of the team. But it is, when it first started, it was a boys club. It was a frat. And it was. That's what it was. And then you walked in, sure. I remember seeing you in Boston, and then you moved to Barstool. What was your first week at Barstool like?
Oh my God, it was so crazy, because I was used to network TV, doing 3 hours of network TV, every single night. And then I walk in, and it was like right before March Madness, and they're all gambling. And I was just like, what's going on? We don't have production meetings. We don't have I don't have a B block. What are we talking about? But it was really cool, because I grew up with, a lot of guy friends loving college football. And it was, you get to watch TV, and you talk about the X's and O's, and you hear the ins and outs of what's going on. And then you go hang out with your friends, and you're sitting down, for the lack of better terms, on a bar stool talking about these games. And that's what that's like. And that's what Dave has really built well, is it's what you would talk about your friends with watching a game. But to be the only woman there doing it, we have other women in content that are phenomenal.
But you were like you were a big rock star for them.
Well, thank you. Especially in sports. We've had pop culture, Chicks in the Office was great. But it's a different world, but I love it. And I love that we've now partnered with you guys, because I get both, right?
You get a little bit of TV, and then...
Yeah. A little bit of X's and O's, and we have to be professional, and then we get to go yell at each other and tell each other that we're stupid. Yeah. So, it's a great mix, but... No, I love working there, and Dave's as authentic as they get, so I'm lucky.
Well, listen, this is a pain in the butt for your schedule, so I appreciate you doing this.
Please, I'm honored. I'd be here anytime you want.
Okay. Well, I tried pulling teeth getting these guys to show up Monday through Friday.
They're just throwing you guys under the bus.
They deserve it. Kayce Smith, congrats on your success. I'd love to have you on again.
I'd love to.
All
Bucket
right.
list. Thanks, Colin.
All right. We'll take a break. It's the Herd. Well, General Manager John Snyder of the Seattle Seahawks wanted to find his Sean McVay. And I've generally been a believer in, because the rules now favor offense, if you can hire an offensive coach, do it. But Snyder would argue he did find Sean McVay, the defensive version, in Mike Macdonald. Handsome, fit, smart, intense, a culture builder, pro player, but tough on players. That's Sean McVay on defense. So remember that Washington coaching tree when they had LaFleur, McVay, Shanahan, Mike Macdonald? Well, Mike Macdonald, he did the Harbaugh tree. He was with the Ravens, and John Harbaugh, and then Jim Harbaugh needed a defensive coordinator, called his brother, and he went to Michigan, and he crushed in both. So, and it's really McVay. Minute he walks in the door, he's got a presence. That's what I've said about Mike Kafka with the Giants. I hear he doesn't have much of a presence. This guy walks into a room, big chest, handsome, fit, smart, intense, looks like an athlete, players buy into him. And that's the thing is, McVay instantly, the Rams offense with all the jet sweeps, it just looked different. Seattle, the minute Mike Macdonald walked in, three things became very clear. Number one, they were going to be a physical team running the football. Number two, hyper-aggressive. It's why he loves Sam Darnold as the quarterback. Sam loves to let it fly down the field. It's why the GM just made a Rashid Shaheed deal from New Orleans. More deep balls. JSN, more deep balls. So, and the third thing, it's very obvious, is special teams means a lot. Seattle special teams are excellent. So, and I always say this, Pete Carroll, old school, left Seattle, and he was a defensive guy. Literally, a month in, the defense was better with a new school guy, defensive head coach. So everybody wants the next McVay. They found it just on the defensive side. And you can see poor coaching, Jets, and really smart coaching. McVay takes over the Rams. Macdonald takes over Seattle. You can see it instantly, mostly by identity. What are you? Right now, New England, unbelievable on first down, tough, better defense, don't make a lot of mistakes. That's them. Seattle, Greg Cosell talked about it yesterday. Their hyper-aggressive defense, how it stacks up with the Rams.
You're dealing with the two defenses that stunt the most of any team in the league. They don't necessarily blitz a high percentage, but they're very aggressive with their multiple stunt concepts, and they've got a lot of defensive linemen up front who are very good at that, whether they're penetrators, whether they're loopers, and that's how they generate pressure, and they're very aggressive. And I think an overlooked player is the rookie for Seattle, Nick Imanwari, who's being used by Mike Macdonald, kind of the way he used Kyle Hamilton in Baltimore.
Yeah, it's back end to the front. Seattle is the real deal. They've been a bit less efficient, a little more reckless because they take a lot of shots down the field. You know, Puka doesn't go down the field deep that often. JSN does. So Seattle takes a few more shots down the field. And they're going to have a few more turnovers. But you can see it, man. You can see an identity minute he walked into Kirkland and Seahawk camp. J-Mac with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herdline News.
All right, Colin, let's get started with the Eagles and the A.J. Brown saga. I think we're calling it a saga now. Well, we're advancing the story because Saquon Barkley has chimed in. He is backing his teammate, the embattled wide receiver.
You're never going to play a perfect game. And we know that the way we played on Monday, more times than not, if we play that game against a lot of teams, we're going to lose. But that's why you have to have complimentary football, and the defense came out, played big for us. But we know we got to improve, and that's the mindset. So whether it's we score 10 or whether we score 40, AJ's not saying anything wrong. We're always looking for room to improve.
Standalone game. Big standalone game. You better feed the ball to A.J. Brown.
Oh, stop it. What do you mean feed him? Stick to your game plan. If he's going to be a petulant little child, let him. As long as you're winning, I don't want to hear the junk, right? Wouldn't you agree with that?
I agree. It was a joke. I think the worst thing you can do is appease and force the ball like they did at the end of the game against Green Bay. Do your thing. Players unhappy. Who says everybody in the locker room is going to love the coach? It's not the way to work. There's always somebody unhappy in pro sports.
And you look at the Detroit secondary. I know Branch is pretty good on the back end, but their corners are not great. This could be a nice A.J. Brown game. Doesn't look like weather's going to be a factor in Philly, Colin, for this one. I like the Eagles here, favored by 2.5. Are you going Lions?
No, I think Philly's the play. I think Green Bay's defense is pretty good, and I think it's hard to play. Lambeau, that was a tough night for both offenses. I think they'll get unleashed here. And also there's some key injuries to Detroit. Penei Sewell, Sam Laporta. Did they practice? Will they play? So the offense may not have the same zip. And it's also cold weather. You look at the weather, when it gets under 50 degrees, when it gets cold, Jared Goff, he's okay as a road quarterback. He's not a very good cold quarterback.
Yeah. All right, let's move to the Buffalo Bills. They had a, let's just say not a great effort against the Miami Dolphins. It happens sometimes, Colin. The great teams don't show up. They scored just 13 points and did not have 100 yards rushing. So that prompted the media to ask Sean McDermott whether Buffalo is still finding its offensive identity. Silly question. Here's what he had to say.
I think we're finding ourselves a little bit. Again, the mention of different wide receivers in there and this and that, and some guys out due to injury, some not, and it's not what you want, but it's okay. We got to continue to find our best combinations, if that makes sense, Mike. Right, with who gives us the best chance to win, and where can we find the rhythm in the passing game.
Yeah, good luck. I like Buffalo. I think if there was one game that could start a bit of an inferno this weekend, it would be Tampa going up to Buffalo and winning. Well, our Monday lead would be Sean McDermott. Can he coach Buffalo? That's the one game on the board. I mean, if Detroit beat Philly, it's not the end of the world. If the Seahawks upset the Rams, and if Kansas City beat Denver, I mean, most of this stuff. But Buffalo comes home. Now, they went from 100 degrees in the humidity. Now they're back to their kind of weather. And they play a warm weather team up north, advantage Buffalo. But if they lost, that's your lead on Monday. If Buffalo can't get right on track.
If the Chiefs lose, that might be a bigger story. But that being said, Colin, I got to ask you, this does feel like a must win. The weather looks like it's going to be very bad, which should give Buffalo an edge. Tampa's beat up. Can I ask you about Dalton Kincaid? In Buffalo, they're starting to call him Dalton First Aid because he's always hurt. The guy can't stay healthy. And when he's off the field, the offense, it's not as dynamic because they don't have that middle of the field guy.
He's their best tight end. He can block, he can catch. I mean, he's there.
Frankly, I think he's a better weapon than any receiver they have. Yeah. I take him over Keon Coleman as a factor.
He was a first-round tight end for a reason. He came out of Utah. He was a good blocker right out of college, which most tight ends aren't.
Yeah, so the Bills, this is kind of a tell here. They signed Mecole Hardman and Gabe Davis to the practice squad. Okay? That usually means something's going on with the wide receiver room. Don't love the vibes in Buffalo, but I am on them in this one. Final story, Colin. We have to talk about Caleb Williams every day now. He's your guy, your new man in Chicago. Caleb Williams in Chicago, 6-3. Things are absolutely rolling. Hey, how about this? Caleb's sack numbers, which are ghastly a year ago, have dropped from 38 through 10 games last season to just 14. Here's Caleb addressing those lower sacks.
It's huge. Partly, the part of it is the guys I got up front. They've been awesome for me and for us. And so, kudos to them and love those guys up front. And then the other half of it is, I think coaches' emphasis on me getting the ball out, and then when it's time to go make a play, make the plays, and it's time to throw it away. And so I think just doing a better job with that overall this year, and I got to keep getting better with that and try and lower the sacks.
By the way, first thing Sean Payton did in Denver, fix the O-line. McVay, first move in L.A., get Andrew Whitworth left tackle. What's the first thing Ben Johnson did? He went to Ryan Poles and said, get me an elite center and Joe Thuney and Jonah Jackson. First thing offensive coaches, head coaches do when they take over a place, fix the O-line. That's where all of it starts. Joe Thuney, Drew Dahlman, Jonah Jackson, that is an elite trio. Sean Payton did the same thing. He took Denver's messy O-line to 11th, then to 7th. This year, I think they're 1 or 2. So they got the right coach, and he puts the priority on the right stuff. And we said before the year, I didn't care about wins. You got to cut the sacks by 50%. That was number one, and they've done it by 70%.
Again, I think we touched on this week, this idea when you got the quarterback on the rookie deal, you can spend anywhere. They chose to spend on the offensive line, which was great because Ben Johnson's DNA is running the football. And, Colin, it's working out great. I kind of want the Vikings here, huh? No. Are you Bears getting 3? Caleb, listen, Flores is going to dial up some pressure. And he kind of flustered Lamar Jackson. Lamar was not great last week. We saw what he did a couple weeks ago to Jared Goff. I think they had something like 17 quarterback hits.
The problem with Minnesota right now is Brian Flores can do everything he wants. When you're 3 and out, when you don't extend drives, you keep giving teams like Baltimore better field position, after about 8-9 drives, you cash in, at least get field goals. Chicago should win the field position game because they'll move the ball enough to win that battle. So Caleb's going to start on average with better field position over his 12 drives than J.J. McCarthy.
How about this? If J.J. McCarthy goes 2-0 against Caleb Williams this week, we have to put a cap on Caleb Williams stories next week.
Never.